Good day everyone, we are the Group 4. So today we will talk about Chapter 4, the Christian settlers and the migrant communities in Mindanao. So by the way, I am Mary Rose Quinones. So I will be discussing the whole introduction of Chapter 4. This topic focuses on how migration shaped Mindanao into what it is today. The presence of Christian settlers in Mindanao is not accidental. It is a part of long historical process that involved government programs, economic opportunities, and social changes. At the same time, this migration created both development and challenges, especially in terms of coexistence among different cultural groups. Ang cultural landscape ng Mindanao ngayon ay resulta ng maraming waves of migration, lalo na mula sa Luzon at Visayas noong ika-20 siklo. So, noong panahong iyon, nagpatupad ang pamahalaan ng mga settlement programs. Ang layunin nito ay mabawasan ang kakulangan sa lupa at ibang relihiyon at mapalakas ang pagkakaisa ng bansa. So, hinikayat nila ang mga Kristyano-Pilipino na lumipat at manirahan sa matabang lupain ng Mindanao. So, dahil dito, nagkaroon ng pag-unlad sa ekonomiya, nagkaroon ng cultural exchange, pero hindi rin natin maikakaila na naapektuhan ang mga katutubong komunidad. So, nagkaroon ng mga issue sa lupa at pangmatagalang tensyon sa pagitan ng iba't ibang grupo. So, sa chapter na ito, tatalakayin natin ang kasaysayan ng mga settler communities, ang kanilang ambag sa kultura at lipunan, at ang mga hamon sa maayos na pagsasama o coexistence sa Mindanao. So, now, let us begin with understanding how this migration started. Mindanao is known for its cultural diversity. So, before migration happens, the original inhabitants were the Moro or Muslim groups and the Lumad or indigenous people. So, however, during early 1900, many Christian Filipinos from Luzon and Visayas moved to Mindanao through government resettlement programs. So, this migration greatly changed the population, culture, economy, and political structure of the island. So, ngayon, naunawaan na natin kung paano nagsimula ang migration. Pag-usapan naman natin kung sino nga ba itong mga Christian settlers at bakit sila nagpasya na lumipat sa Mindanao. Christian settlers and migrant communities in Mindanao refers to the group of predominantly Christian Filipino migrant and their descendants who moved to the island of Mindanao or in the southern Philippines. So mostly during 20th century, so these communities are distinct from the indigenous Moro or Muslim and Lumad or indigenous tribals, peoples who are originally. So dito, ang mga Christian settlers daw at mga community sa Mindanao ay tumutukoy sa mga grupo ng mga Kristyanong Pilipinong migrante at kanilang mga inapo na lumipat sa isla ng Mindanao o sa timog na bahagi ng Pilipinas. So karamihan noong ika-20 siglo, ang mga komunidad na ito ay naiiba sa katutubong Moro or Muslim at Lumad or mga katutubong tribo na unang nanirahan dito. So, sino nga ba sila? So, ang mga Christian settlers ay mga Pilipino, karamihan ay Roman Catholic at Protestant. So, namula sa Luzon at Visayas, ang hilaga at gitnang bahagi ng Pilipinas. So, patungong Mindanao, simula noong bahagi ng 1900. Ang kabilang sa mga komunidad na ito, ang mga taong may lahing Cebuano, Ilonggo or Hiligaynon, Ilocano, Tagalog, Bicolano, Kapampangan, Waray, Bulanon or mula sa Bohol at iba pa. So, marami sa kanila ang nanirahan sa mga lupang sakahan at nagtatag ng mga pamayanang agricultural at mga bayan ng rehiyon tulad ng Northern Mindanao, Socsarjan, Davao Region at iba pa. Paano nga ba sila nakarating sa Mindanao? Noong unang panahon ng pananakop ng mga Amerikano, unang bahagi ng 1900, hinikayat ng pamahalaan ng Pilipinas ang paglipat ng mga tao sa Mindanao sa pamamagitan ng mga programang resettlement upang magamit ang matabang lupa at maisama ang rehiyon sa pambansang ekonomiya. So pagkatapos ng ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig, ipinagpatuloy ng pamahalaan ang migrasyon sa pamamagitan ng mga ahensya tulad ng Lasedeco at NARA na nag-alok ng lupa at iba pang benepisyo ng mga Christian settlers. So sa paglipas ng mga dekada, ang mga migrante at kanilang mga inapo ay naging mayorya ng populasyon sa maraming bahagi ng Mindanao. So sa ilang lugar, humigit kumulang 70% ng populasyon ay mga Kristiyano na mas marami kaysa sa Moro at Lumad. Brief history of Christian settlers and migrant communities in Mindanao. So, the migration of Christian settlers to Mindanao began in the early 1900s during American colonial period. the government promoted Mindanao as the land of promise. So because of its fertile land and economic opportunities to reduce landlessness and overcrowding in Luzon and Visayas, the government encouraged Christian Filipinos to move to Mindanao through organized and settlement program. So in 1939, the National Land Settlement Administration, or NLSA, was established to help relocate families. So after World War II, migration continued through agencies like Land Settlement and Development Corporation, or LASIDECO, and the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, or NARA. So because of this large migration, many Christian settlers eventually became the majority population in several parts of Mindanao. So however, the settlement program also led to land conflicts and tension with the indigenous Moro and Lumad communities. Sa madaling salita, nagsimula ang paglipat ng mga Christian settlers sa Mindanao noong panahon ng mga Amerikano. So tinawag itong Land of Promise dahil sa matabang lupa at maraming oportunidad. So dahil kulang ang lupa at siksikan na sa Luzon at Visayas, hinikayat ng pamahalaan ng mga tao na lumipat sa Mindanao. So gumawa ng mga ahensya tulad ng National Land Settlement Administration para tumulong sa mga lilipat. So dahil sa dami ng lumipat, naging mayorya ang mga Christian settlers sa maraming lugar, and ngunit nagdulot din ito ng mga problema sa lupa at tensyon sa pagitan ng mga Moro at Lumad. Learning objectives or learning targets. So sa chapter na ito, tatalakayin natin ang 5 mahalagang aspeto. First is ang pangunahing land settlement programs at ang epekto nito sa populasyon ng Mindanao. So second, ang pinagmulan ng kontribusyon ng iba't ibang Christian ethno-linguistic groups, and ikatatlo, kung paano nagsanib ang Christian beliefs at indigenous practices, and pang-apat, ang mga innovation sa agrikultura, edukasyon at kultura. At ang ikalima, ang mga peace building efforts and intercultural dialect sa pagitan ng Christian, Moro at Lumad communities. And that concludes my part about Christian settlers and migrant communities in Mindanao. Now, to further understand this topic, let us hear from my groupmate who will discuss the next part.
Lesson today, everyone. My name is Guillermo A. Sorzano, and this is my report. Lesson 4.1, Migration to Mindanao, Historical Overview. So, in this lesson po, ipapaliwanag kung paano nakaapekto ang migration sa Mindanao sa populasyon at lipunan ng rehiyon. Early 20th century, government programs promoted migration to Mindanao to address land shortage in Luzon and Visayas. These efforts dramatically reshaped the island's demographics and landscape. So, bali po, ang migration sa Mindanao ay may malaking epekto sa kasaysayan at lipunan nito. Dahil dati, ang Mindanao ay may tahanan ng mga Moro at Lumad na may sariling kultura at sistema ng pagmamayari ng lupa. Sa panahon ng pananakop ng mga Amerikano, hinikayat ng pamahalaan ang mga Kristiyanong Pilipino mula sa Luzon at Visayas na manirahan sa Mindanao. American Colonial 1903 to 1935 Public Land Act of 1903 allowed Filipino to claim up to 16 hectares. Sa pamamagitan ng mga Public Land Act of 1930, pinayagan ang mga manirahan na magkaroon ng lupa up to 16 hectares. New farming colonies like Glan and Buyan were established primarily settled by Cebuanos. So, nagbunga po dito ng pagtatag ng mga pamayanang pansakahan tulad ng Glan at Buyan. Sa 1919 law changed land access giving Christian Filipino up to 20 hectares while limiting non-Christians to 10 hectares, institutionalizing inequality. So, noong 1919 po, mas pinaburan ng mga patakaran sa lupa ang mga Kristiyano kaysa sa di-Kristiyano. Ipinagpatuloy ang migration noong panahon ng Commonwealth at matapos ang ikalawang digmaan pandaigdig sa tulong ng mga ahensya tulad ng NLSA or National Land Settlement Administration or NARRA or National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration. Dahil dito, milyon-milyong Pilipino ang naninirahan sa Mindanao. Ang kasaysayan ng migration sa Mindanao po ay malaga upang maunawaan ang mga isyong kinakaharap ng rehiyon hanggang sa kasulkuyan. Yun lamang po, thank you.
Good morning everyone, especially to you ma'am. My name is Cheza J. Tabligan and this is my part of my report about Commonwealth period 1936 to 1946. Ano nga ba po ang Commonwealth period? The Commonwealth of the Philippines 1935 to 1946 was a 10 years transitional administration established by the Tidings-McDuffie Act to prepare the Philippines for full independence from the United States, led by President Manuel L. Quezon. It focused on nation-building, economic stability, and national defense but was interrupted by the Japanese occupation 1942 to 1945, later culminating in independence on July 4, 1946. Kay aspect of the Commonwealth period in 1936 to 1946, pinangunahan ito ni Manuel L. Quezon served as the first president followed by Sergio Osmeña in 1944 after Quezon death in exile. Government and policies. The period established a strong presidential system, adopted a national language, Tagalog, implemented women's suffrage, that created the National Defense Act of 1935. Japanese occupation. 1942-1945, following the invention, the Commonwealth government went into exile in the United States. Independence on July 4, 1946, the United States recognized the independence of the Philippines, fulfilling the promise of the Tidings-McDuffie Act. Although technically starting in late 1935, the Commonwealth period is often associated with the 1936 to 1946 timeframe, as it presents the decade of transition leading to the final turnover of power in 1946. National Land Settlement Administration, or NLSA, formed in 1939, was a government corporation created in the Philippines on June 3, 1939, under Commonwealth Act Number 441, established during the administration of President Manuel L. Quezon. Its primary goals was to facilitate the acquisition, settlement, and cultivation of land to provide farming opportunities for land lease tenants and small farmers. Establishment created by the Second National Assembly and signed into law President Quezon. Leadership managed by a 5-person board of directors appointed by the President. Major General Pauline Santos was a key figure in leading early settlement group. Migration encouraged migration from congested areas in Luzon and the Visayas to sparsely populated region, particularly in Mindanao. Land ownership aimed to turn tenant farmers into landowners with individual lot holding capped at 24 hectares. Economic development focused on developing money crops to diversify by economy beyond traditional export crops. Major project. The NLSA successfully opened the Corondal Valley and Ala Valley in Cotabato, as well as the Malig Plains in Isabela. Legacy and transition. Its operations were disrupted by World War II. In 1950, it was replaced by the Land Settlement and Development Corporation, or LASEDECO, via Executive Order 355. Settlers from Luzon and Visayas moved to areas like Marbel and Coronadal. Settlers from Luzon and Visayas migrated to South Cotabato, particularly the Coronadal and Ala valleys, between the 1930s and 1950s through government-sponsored program. Key areas of settlement included Marbel, now Coronadal City, Lagao, and nearby towns like Tupi, Nurala, and Banga, transforming them into thriving agriculture hubs dominated by Ilonggo, Cebuano, and Ilocano. Key settler areas and origins. Coronadal, Old Marbel, originally settled by a mix of Visayas, mostly Ilonggo, and Luzon settlers, becoming a trading center. Lagao, an initial site of agriculture colonization. Tupi, Tampakan, and Tantangan, heavily settled by Ilocano speakers from Luzon. Nurala, Banga, and Surala, settled mainly by Hiligaynon speakers from Panay and Negros. Tacorong, Sultan Kudarat, a major hub for Ilonggo migrants. Project facilitated the growth of new towns complete with schools, roads, and churches. The most relevant example include historical post-war developments and specific modern master plan communities. The New Towns Program, post-WW2 United Kingdom, following the New Towns Act of 1946, this project established 27 new towns, such as Stevenage, Crowley, and Melton Keynes, to provide housing, school, churches, and employment, acting as a model for planned communities. The Garden City movement, initiated by Ebenezer Howard, this movement focused on building self-sufficient planned communities that integrated green space with essential social infrastructure like schools and churches, and etc. Letchworth Garden City. Coronadal Valley Project, Philippine, initiated under the Quezon administration and managed by the General Pauline Santos. This project aimed to resettle population by creating new complete towns in Cotabato with infrastructure like roads, hospitals, schools, and churches. Lakewood, California, 1950s, a quintessential post-war living town-like community that was rapidly developed to include thousands of homes. Churches of various denomination, schools, and parks within walk distancing. Modern integrated township, Lancaster, New City, Philippines. Contemporary projects that create cities within a city integrated residential areas with school, etc., St. Edward School, churches, the parish of the Holy Family, commercial center, the square, and road network.
Post-war period in 1946 to 1954. After the World War II, the Philippines became independent in 1946 and faced major problems: destroyed cities, poverty, landlessness, and unrest. To solve this, the government encouraged people from crowded areas like Luzon and Visayas to move to Mindanao, which had a large areas of land. The DESCO and NARA Park programs invited more settlers, including ex-rebels. The DESCO, or Land Settlement and Development Corporation, and NARA, the National Resettlement and Rehabilitation Administration, were created to give land to farmers, landless families, and former rebels. This helped reduce conflict and gave people a chance to start a new life through farming. The settlement expanded to Bukidnon, Davao, Cotabato, and Tawi-Tawi. Migrants moved to these Mindanao provinces because land was available. New towns, farms, roads, and community were built. The Public Act No. 1888 aimed to include indigenous peoples, but many were still displaced. The law tried to protect native groups like Lumads and Muslim, but the reality, many lost their ancestral lands as settlers arrived. This caused tension between settlers and indigenous communities. Settlement patterns and impact. Settlement patterns. By 1970, migration greatly changed Mindanao. Christian settlers became about 76% of population. The different ethnic groups settled in specific places, like Ilocanos in high islands, and the Cebuanos and Ilonggos in valleys, and the Tagalogs are in town and cities. The positive effect are the development of agriculture and economy, new farming techniques introduced, and creation of towns, roads, and markets. The negative effects is the land disputes between settlers and indigenous peoples, displacement of native communities, and long-term conflicts and resettlement. And the simple summary, the post-war period in 1946 to 1954 was a time when Philippine government moved many people to Mindanao to rebuild the country, to give land to the poor, and this helped develop the region but also caused conflict because indigenous groups lost their lands.
Good day everyone, I am Michael J. Tapales, the reporter of Lesson 4.2. So, today we will discussing about settlers communities, origins, and integration. Government-supported programs brought diverse Christian groups to Mindanao, often granting them lands that were ancestral territories of Moro and Lomad communities. First is the Tagalog settlers. Tagalog settlers origin from Central Luzon, and the settlement areas is Cotabato and Davao. Tagalog settlers were among the early Christian migrants to Mindanao, coming from agricultural provinces in Central Luzon. They sought an ownership and better economic opportunities. So the integration and contribution is learn local language for the communication, intermarried with other settler and indigenous communities, contributed to commerce, farming, and education, became part of Mindanao's growing urban and rural communities. Second, Ilonggo settlers. Origin is in Panay and Negros. So, settlement areas ito ay South Cotabato, Sultan Kudarat, and North Cotabato. Ilonggo migrants established farming communities particularly in fertile agricultural zones. Many were skilled in rice and sugar cultivation. Integration and contribution. So, preserved their Catholic faith and Ilonggo language. Adapted to local dialect, built agriculture, settlement, and local business. Contributed to the development of towns and municipalities. Their strong community organization allowed them to thrive economically. Third is the Cebuano settlers. Their origin from Cebu and other parts of the Visayas. So their settlement areas is Bukidnon and Davao. Cebuanos become one of the largest settlers groups in Mindanao, known for their farming skills and entrepreneurial spirit. They played a central role in settlement expansion. So their integration and contributions are dominated early settler towns, promoted agricultural development, influenced the widespread use of Cebuano as a lingua franca in many parts of Mindanao. However, limited interactions with the indigenous groups in some areas contributed to the misunderstanding and land disputes. Fourth, Ilocano settlers, their origin is from northern Luzon. Their settlement area is within northern Cotabato and Davao and Tagusan. Ilocanos were known for their rice farming expertise and strong work ethic. They migrated in search for fertile and farmland. So nag-migrate sila para mag-search ng fertile and farmland po. So their integration and contributions are improve agriculture productivity, introduce organized farming techniques, build tight-knit communities. In some cases, expansion of cultivated and land and tension with indigenous groups over land ownership and boundaries. Next is the Kapampangan settler. Kapampangan settler origin from Central Luzon and their settlement areas are from Cotabato, and Davao. Kapampangans resettled in Mindanao for economic opportunities and land access. So, integration and contribution. Maintain Catholic religious traditions, adapted to Cebuano for daily communication, became active participants in community leadership and civic life. Their cultural adaptability helped them integrate with existing settler majority communities. Lastly is the Bicolano settlers. Origin from Southern Luzon, settlement areas is in Zamboanga and Davao. Bicolano migrants were driven largely by farming opportunities. Integration and contribution. Preserved religious traditions, adapted Cebuanos as a common language. Engaged in agriculture and small-scale enterprises. Their migration added further diversity to Mindanao's culture landscape. So, that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone. In this lesson, we will discuss religion, beliefs, and folk practice in the Philippines. When the Spanish colonizer arrived, they brought strong Catholic traditions. However, instead of completely replacing local beliefs, Catholicism blended with indigenous cultures. This blending is called religious syncretism, the combination of different religious beliefs and practices. Because of this, many people religious practices today are mix of Catholic teaching and traditional folk beliefs. Now, let's look at different religions. Tagalog. In Tagalog areas, Catholic rituals such as Pabasa and Flores de Mayo become popular. However, these practices were combined with ancestral prayers, local music, and community tradition. Bicolano. In the Bicol region, devotion to the Virgin Mary is very strong, especially during the Peña Francia festival. Although it is a Catholic celebration, it includes local symbols and cultural expressions unique to the region. Ilonggo. Among the Ilonggo people, patron saint festas are celebrated with native elements such as healing, dances, and traditional chants, showing a mix of faith and folk cultures. Kapampangan. Kapampangans are known for intense Holy Week traditions. These practices are deeply religious but also influenced by local healing rituals and community festivities. Cebuano. In Cebu, devotion to Santo Niño is expressed through the Sinulog Festival, which combines Catholic devotion with local rhyme and cultural dances. Ilocano. In Ilocos, Catholic festas and patron saint celebration include local storytelling, music, and dances that reflect indigenous traditions. Filipino religious practices today are the result of cultural blending. They show how faith and tradition work together to form a unique Filipino spiritual identity.
In this slide, I will report about cultural contribution and challenges both by Christian settlers to Mindanao. Christian settlers play an important role in shaping the region's agriculture and education. They introduced new farming techniques, established schools, both by festivals, and traditional that enrich the cultural life of the area. However, their migration also create challenges as settlers occupied fertile lands, tensions across with indigenous communities, especially over land ownership and resource control. Next, agriculture. One of the major contributions of the settlers was in agriculture. They brought with them farming knowledge and skills from their home regions, which helped improve agricultural production in Mindanao. For example, Tagalog settlers introduced with rice farming techniques with increased rice production. Bicolanos were known from growing abaca and coconuts. Kapampangans contribute their expertise in vegetables farming. Ilocanos established tobacco planting and upland rice farms. Cebuanos focus on corn and coconut planting. Ilonggos developed sugarcane and rice farms. Because of this contribution, agricultural productivity improved and Mindanao became more connection to national market.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmate. Today, I will going to report my topic, which is all about cultural contributions and challenges to education, and how it influenced by settlers and missionaries, and how it being challenges to Lumad and Muros. Ginatawag ang Mindanao na the land of promise. Hindi lang dahil sa lupa at trabaho, kundi dahil rin sa opportunities sa edukasyon. Habang marami ang naninirahan sa Mindanao, kailangan ng mga public schools at mga guro. Kaya maraming settlers tulad ng Tagalog, Cebuano, Ilocano, Ilonggo ang na-assign o nag-volunteers bilang guro at tumulong sa pagpapatakbo ng mga paaralan. Dahil libre ang tuition sa public schools, mas maraming bata, kahit lumad, muro o anak ng settlers, ang nakakapasok sa iisang classroom. Kaya't naging tagpuan ang paaralan ng iba't ibang kultura. Ano nga ba ang naging papel ng Tagalog o Dayambag sa Mindanao? Ang mga Tagalog settlers ay may malaking papel sa public school system. Marami sa kanila ang naging teachers sa elementary at high schools. At sila ang nagpatupad ng Tagalog at English bilang wikang panturo. So paano nga ba kung wala ang wikang Tagalog? Ano nga ba ang ating gagamiting wika? Magkakaintindihan kaya tayo sa loob ng schools? At para magkaintindihan ng students na may iba't ibang wika tulad ng Muro, Ilocano, Cebuano, Christian at iba pa. Halimbawa, sa Davao, ang Tagalog teachers ay nagturo ng math at Filipino gamit ang kombinasyon ng Tagalog at English. Kaya naintindihan ng lahat Cebuano, Lumad at Muro. Ano naman kaya ang naging papel o naiambag ng mga Bicolano settlers sa pagtuturo dito sa Mindanao? Ang mga Bicolano na may kilala sa malaki sa alternative education, lalo na sa pagbukas ng night schools para sa mga indigenous learners. Ito ay para sa mga bata at adult na hindi na makakapasok sa regular na klase dahil sa pagtatrabaho sa bukid, tulad ng pangingisda, pagsasaka at iba pa, para makatulong sa kanilang pamilya. Halimbawa, isang lumad na bata ay tumutulong sa bukid araw-araw, pero nakaka-attend pa rin sila ng night school sa gabi, kasama ang gabay ng Bicolano teachers at mga volunteers. Kaya natututo pa rin sila sa pagbasa, pagsulat at basic math. Ang Kapampangan naman, ano kaya ang kanilang naging papel o naiambag sa pagtuturo dito sa Mindanao? Ang mga Kapampangan settlers ay nakakatulong sa edukasyon sa pamamagitan ng parish at mission schools, kung saan tinuturo hindi lang ng academics, kundi pati ang values, discipline at moral formation sa Bukidnon o sa iba pang lugar. Halimbawa, Kapampangan teachers ang nagturo ng basic literacy at values. Kaya ang mga bata ay natututo hindi lang pagbasa at pagsulat, kundi rin ang respeto at pananampalataya. Ang respeto sa kapwa ay mahalaga na matutunan ng kabataan, hindi lang sa academics, pati na rin sa kanilang pang-araw-araw. Mga Ilocano, ano kaya ang kanilang naging papel o naging misyon dito ng pagtuturo dito sa Mindanao? Ang mga Ilocano ay nakatuon sa vocational at technical educations para magkaroon ng practical skills na makakatulong sa trabaho at pang-araw-araw na buhay. marami sa kanila ang nagturo ng welding, carpentry, electrical installations at sewing, at mga iba pang tech-work skills. Isang halimbawa ng tech-work ay ang TESDA. So, ano nga ba ang TESDA? Ang TESDA ay isang programa ng pamahalaan na pinatupad dito sa ating bansa para para mabigyan ng oportunidad ang mga kabataan o ng mga mag-aaral na magkaroon ng skills o maka-adapt ng skills na kahit paano meron silang dadalhin sa kanilang kinabukasan. Halimbawa sa Zamboanga, isang Ilocano teachers ang nagturo ng carpentry sa high school para matutunan ng students kung gumawa ng fortuners at kumita sa community. Dahil ang skills ay hindi lang magamit sa schools, kundi magamit ito sa pang-araw-araw na panghanap buhay at sa iba pang o sa ibang bansa. Mga Cebuano, ano naman kaya ang kanilang naging papel o naiambag sa pagturo dito sa Mindanao? Ang mga Cebuano settlers ay malaking ang impluensya sa wika, kultura at edukasyon, lalo na sa mga Cebuano speaking communities. Sila ay naging teachers, principal at administrators at ginamit ang Bisaya bilang bridge language para maintindihan ng students ang lesson bago i-introduce ang Filipino at English. Halimbawa, sa Cagayan de Oro, Bisaya ang ginagamit sa pagtuturo ng science at math para mas ma-access ng lahat ng kabataan sa edukasyon. Ginagamit lamang nila ito kapag ang mga estudyante ay may purong Bisaya o Cebuano. Pero kapag ang mga teachers ay nagtuturo sa isang paaralan na ang mga estudyante ay iba-iba ang kultura o wika, ay napipilitan silang gumamit ng Tagalog para ang lahat ay magkakaintindihan at madaling maunawaan. Ang panghuli sa aking tatalakay ng mga settlers ay ang Ilonggo. So ano naman kaya ang naging papel o naiambag ng mga Ilonggo sa paaralan at edukasyon? Ang Ilonggo naman ay nag-focus sa discipline, values o community involvement at ginagamit ang Hiligaynon para mas maintindihan ng students ang lesson bago unti-unting ituturo ang Filipino at English. Halimbawa, sa Iloilo, settlers community sa Mindanao, Ilonggo teachers ang nagturo ng reading at writing sa Hiligaynon. Kaya mas madali para sa mga bata ang matutunan ang basics. Sa kabila ng mga positibong kontribusyon ng mga settlers, may mga challenges din ang Lumad at Muros learners. Para sa Lumad, madalas na hindi naangkop ang curriculum sa kanilang culture language at Filipino o English ang ginagamit sa pagtuturo. So alam naman natin na ang mga Lumad ay madalas hindi sila marunong makipagkomunikasyon gamit ang naturang lengguwahe tulad ng Filipino at iba pang. Na-adapt lamang nila ito kapag sila ay nagkaroon ng kaibigan na Moro or Christians o ibang wika. So mas madali nilang na-adapt ang isang wika na nagagamit nila ito sa kanilang pang-araw-araw na komunikasyon sa paaralan. At isa rin ang kahirapan, displacement at malalayong lugar ay naging limit sa pag-access sa paaralan. At para sa Moro learners, minsan nagkakaroon ng conflict ang Western style curriculum sa Islamic educations. So, maraming Moros ang mas piniling mag-aral sa Islamic learners dahil dito sila nagiging komportable at madalas nahuli sila sa Western style curriculum o nag-aral sila sa ALS dahil sa pag-aaral sa Islamic educations at values at maaaring mag-overlap ang schedules ng madras classes. Bukod dito, ang ilang lugar ay apektado rin ng armed conflict kaya na-disrupt ang schooling. Dito po nagtatapos ang aking topic at reporting. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikinig.
Good morning, ma'am. I'm Oscar Clechi, Simple Base IT4B. My topic was all about cultural challenges, cultural contributions and challenges. Festivals in Tagalog, Bicolanos, Kapampangans, Ilocanos, Cebuanos, and last is Ilonggos. First is Tagalog Black Nazarenes Fest. Tagalog settlers celebrate the Feast of the Black Nazarenes, a major Catholic devotion originating from Quiapo, Manila. These traditions emphasize deep faith, processions, and community participation. Second is Bicolanos. Peña Francia celebrations. Bicolanos introduce devotions to Our Lady of Peña Francia of the Philippines' most important Marian celebrations, known for its fluvial processions. Third is Kapampangans Sinokwan Festival. Kapampangans brew the Sinokwan festivals which honors Aring Sinokwan, a cultural hero celebrating Kapampangans heritage through dance and music. Fourth is Ilocanos. Pamulinawan Festival. Ilocanos organize the Pamulinawan festivals inspired by a famous Ilocano folk song. It promotes cultural pride in local traditions. Fifth is Cebuanos Sinulog Parades. Cebuanos revives the Sinulog, a grand festival honoring the Santo Niño, famous for its rhythmic street dancing and colorful costumes. And the last is Ilonggos, Dinagyang Style Contest. Ilonggos whose contest inspired by the Dinagyang Festival, known for its energetic tribal dance competitions and Ata-inspired performance. And that's all. Thank you and mabuhay po.
Good day everyone, my name is Christine May Villalobos. I'm here to discuss about cultural contributions and challenge. Settler-indigenous relationship. Land ownership caused most tension, but some settlers form friendship and partnership, while other contribution to displacement. So, ipinapakita ng slide na ito ang ugnayan ng mga settlers, mga dayong naninirahan at mga katutubong grupong indigenous people sa Pilipinas. Tagalog sometimes clash with Higaunon over farms. So, nagkaroon ng hindi pagkakaunawaan dahil pareho nilang gustong gamitin ang lupa para sa pagsasaka. So, halimbawa, may lupang matagal nang sinasaka ng Higaunon. Dumating ang mga Tagalog at ginamit din ang lupa para magtanim ng palay. Dahil dito, nagkaroon ng pagtatalo kung sino ang tunay na may-ari na may karapatan sa lupa. So this is the example or image of Tagalog at Higaunon. It's called River of Peace. Bicolanos face Moro resistance but reach compromises. Sa simula ay may tensyon, pero kalaunan ay nag-uusap at nagkakaroon ng kompromiso. Halimbawa, hindi pumayag ang Moro na basta gamitin ang kanilang lupa. Nag-uusap ang dalawang grupo at nagkasundo na hatiin ang lupa o magbabayad ng tamang bahagi ang Bicolano. So this is the example or image of Bicolano. Called is Kaugma Street Dance Competition, ang kanilang tribe. Pampangans form cooperatives with local farmers. Bumuo sila ng kooperatiba para sama-samang umunlad. Halimbawa, nagsama-sama sila sa pagbili ng binhi at pataba at sabay-sabay nilang ibinenta ang ani para mas malaki ang kita ng lahat. So this is the image of Kapampangan, Subuaga Festival. Ilocanos unintentionally displaced lumats leading to conflict. Dahil sa paglawak ng tirahan o sakahan ng Ilocano, naaapektuhan ang lupa ng lumad. Halimbawa, nagtayo ng bagong baryo ang mga Ilocano sa lugar na dati nang tinitirahan ng lumad, kaya napipilitan ang lumad na lumipat ng tirahan. So this is the example of Ilocano at lumad, tan-ok ni Ilocano Festival of Cebuano at Moro. Cebuano hired Moros, causing economic dependence. May mga Moro na naging manggagawa ng Cebuano, kaya nagkakaroon ng economic independence. Halimbawa, ang Moro ay nagtatrabaho bilang magsasaka o mangingisda para sa Cebuano. Dahil dito, umuasa siya sa sahod na ibinibigay ng amo. This is the image of Cebuano at Moro, Sinloy Festival, ang kanilang tribe. And lastly, Ilonggos practice block farming, promoting coexistence. Sama-samang paggamit at paghahati ng lupa upang maiwasan ang agitan. Halimbawa, hinihati ng lupa sa maayos na bahagi at nagtutulungan ang bawat pamilya sa pagnanim at pag-aani. So, image of Ilonggos, Dinagyang Festival. Kung may dalawang grupo na gustong gumamit ng isang lupa, maaari magkaroon ng agitan, ngunit kung sila ay mag-usap at magtutulungan, pagkakaroon ng kapayapaan at mas maayos na samahan.
Good day po, ma'am. My name po is Stephen J.D. Senador, BSIT 4B. My report is about dialogue, coexistence in the future of diversity. Mindanao's diverse culture share meals, schools, and festivals, yet compete for land despite historical conflict, hope for trust and diversity precise through dialogue and peace initiatives. Fostering deeper intercultural interactions. In an increasingly interconnected world, genuine intercultural interactions are not just desirable but essentials. These engagements go beyond superficial exchange into shared experience, mutual learning, and the appreciation of diverse perspectives. Building bridges between cultures requires active listening, empathy, and a willingness to step outside one's own frame of reference. It's about recognizing the riches that diversity brings to our societies. There are two fostering deeper intercultural interactions. Number one is everyday encounters. Opportunities for intercultural exchange often arise in a daily life, from workplace, schools to local communities and public space. These informal settings can be powerful for understandings. Number two, educational and professional settings. Academic institution and global workplace naturally bring together people from different backgrounds. Structured programs and exclusive policies can enhance their interactions, turning diversity into a strength. Addressing social tension and diverse societies. While diversity brings benefits, it can also present challenges in the form of social tensions. These tensions also often from misunderstanding, socio-economics, recognizing and addressing their underlying causes is crucial for building cohesive communities. Ignoring them only allows divides to deepen, leading to potential conflict and fracturing social bonds. There are three addressing social tension in diverse societies. Number one is understanding root causes. Tension can arise from competition over resources, political polarization, or cultural clashes. Research and data-driven analysis are vital to pinpointing specific factors. Number two is impact of community. Unresolved social tensions can erode trust, fosters discrimination and collective progress. They can manifest as segregation, conflict, or social cohesion. Number three is the role of media. Media narratives can either exacerbate tensions. Responsible reporting and platforms for balanced perspectives are key to shaping public discourse constructively. Launching effective peace initiatives to counter social tensions and promote coexistence. Deliberate and well-structured peace initiatives are indispensable. These programs aim to foster mutual respect, understanding, and reconciliation among different groups. Successful initiatives often involve multiple stakeholders, from grassroots organizations to government bodies, working collaboratively towards common goals. Dialogue platforms. Creating safe space for open, honest, and dialogue is fundamental. These platforms allow individuals to share their stories, challenges, and inspiration, fostering empathy. Community building. Joint projects, cultural festivals, and shared activities can build strong community bonds that cultural differences highlight common interests and humanity. Conflict resolution. Implementing mediation, arbitration, and restorative justice practices can help address conflicts constructively, preventing escalation and promoting lasting peace. Bridging traditions for a united future. Bridging traditions means more than just tolerating differences. It involves actively seeking common ground and celebrating the unique contributions each culture brings. It's about weaving a richer, more vibrant. This process requires an appreciation for historical heritage, while also embracing innovation and adaptation, ensuring that traditions evolve to meet contemporary challenges. Shared values. Identify universal values and principles that resonate across different traditions, such as respect, compassion, and justice to form a foundation for unity. Cultural exchange. Promote cross-cultural learning through arts, food, language, and storytelling. This fosters mutual understanding and breaks down stereotypes. Adaptive integration. Encourage tradition to adapt and integrate new elements, demonstrating their dynamism and relevance in modern contexts without losing their essence. Envisioning a harmonious, diverse tomorrow. Exclusive education. Teach empathy, representation, and access. Cultural celebration. Honor traditions and shared community events. Equitable policies. Design fair laws and resource distribution. Continue dialogue, fostering ongoing conversation and listening.